The Victorian era, revolutionary and beautiful. You wake up in a cold room under the roof long before the owners open their eyes. You open a narrow wooden door in the backyard, hidden behind thick ivy bushes. Your rough boots step onto the cold stone steps of a narrow black staircase. This hidden passage leads to the heart of the huge house, completely bypassing the formal halls and wide galleries. Your hand slides along the damp brick wall of the winding, dark corridor. You carry a small copper lamp in your hand, its dim light barely dispelling the thick morning mist. Behind the thick layers of stone, you can hear neither the noise of passing carriages nor the footsteps of other servants. The architecture of this space is designed specifically to hide your presence from prying eyes. You stop at a massive oak door, tightly covered with thick green cloth. This dense fabric reliably absorbs any sounds, preventing them from penetrating the master's part of the house. You gently press the smooth copper handle, trying not to make the slightest squeak. The door opens smoothly, revealing a dark corridor between the walls of the spacious dining room and the morning room. Along the walls of this passageway stretches a complex system of stretched metal wires and bells. Each bell has its own unique tone and is connected to a specific room in the huge house. You look at them carefully, ready to spring into action at the first ring. There are no windows in this narrow space, and the air here always remains still and cool. Your gray cotton skirt rustles slightly as you walk, but you learn to move smoothly. You put your foot down from toe to heel so that the heavy sole doesn't clatter on the wooden floor. The distance between the walls is so small that you can touch them with both hands at the same time. You make your way through these hidden arteries of the house like a shadow with no voice and no face of your own. You carry a bunch of heavy iron keys on a sturdy leather belt. They are tightly wrapped in thick woolen thread so that the metal does not jingle with every step you take. Your path leads past blank walls that hide magnificent rooms with high ceilings. You know the location of every painting and every chair on the other side of the wall, even though you never go there during the day. You approach a hidden panel that looks like a normal part of the wood paneling from the living room. There is no handle or keyhole, just a barely noticeable gap in the woodwork. You press the hidden lever, and the panel slides silently to the side. The smell of stale air mixed with the aroma of expensive wax hits your face. Your task is to move through these corridors faster than the owners walk through the ceremonial halls. You must be in the right place exactly 1 minute before any of the family members appear there. It's a constant race against an invisible stopwatch, where losing means dismissal without recommendation. You disappear into the darkness, blending in with the gray walls of the service rooms. Your breathing is steady, and your movements have long been honed to perfection by months of continuous work. You wipe the brass door handles with a special cloth, removing the slightest traces of your presence. You descend into a deep basement where huge stocks of coal are stored. Thick coal dust hangs in the air, settling on your light-colored apron and hair. You pick up a heavy iron shovel and begin filling deep metal buckets. Each bucket weighs several dozen pounds, and you have to carry them up to the upper floors. You bend your back, grab the stiff handles, and begin the slow climb up the steep stairs. Your arms tense and the rough skin on your palms develops new calluses. You carry this black load to the formal bedrooms to light the morning fires. You enter the huge living room, lit only by the pale moonlight streaming through the tall windows. The air in the room is freezing, and your breath escapes your mouth in white clouds of steam. You kneel in front of the marble fireplace, spreading a piece of thick, coarse fabric on the carpet. You carefully place your iron buckets and a set of ash cleaning brushes on this fabric. Your hands, encased in thick gloves, begin to rake out the cold ashes from yesterday's fire. You move very slowly so that the gray dust does not rise into the air and settle on the expensive furniture. The ashes are collected in a special tin scoop with a closing lid. Every sound of metal scraping against stone seems deafening in the morning silence. Then you take pieces of old newspaper and crumple them into tight balls. You place the paper on the iron grate, adding dry wood chips on top. On top of this structure, you carefully lay out pieces of heavy coal. You strike a match, bringing the flame to the paper, and watch carefully as the fire ignites. The acrid smell of smoke fills the space around the fireplace for a moment. You quickly open the chimney damper, allowing the draft to carry all the smoke outside. The fire begins to crackle, warming your cold red hands. You take a piece of damp cloth and carefully wipe the marble shelf of invisible dust. All this work is done in complete darkness, lit only by the light of the blazing flames. You polish the iron fireplace grate with a special paste until the metal begins to shine. You check the carpet, making sure there are no black spots from coal left on it. Your uniform smells of soot and your face is covered with thin gray streaks. You pick up the dirty tools and silently retreat to a hidden door in the wall. Only the even warmth and soft light from the bright fire in the fireplace remain in the room. You close the wooden panel behind you just as the grandfather clock begins to strike. The owners will wake up in their warm room, unaware of your recent visit. You move on to the next room, repeating this difficult ritual over and over again. Your back aches from constantly bending over, but there is no time to rest. You return to the reception rooms with a set of brushes, brooms, and jars of beeswax. Your task is not only to remove the dust, but also to hide the fact that you have cleaned. You begin to move from the far end of the long room toward the door. You scrub the parquet floor with a stiff bristle brush tied to your boots. You take long sliding steps backwards, destroying the traces of your own feet. The wood begins to shine brightly, reflecting the morning light from the huge stained glass windows. The smell of turpentine and melted wax fills the spacious living room. You take a soft flannel cloth and approach the massive mahogany table. You wipe the polished tabletop, removing microscopic fingerprints. Each vase, each silver statuette is lifted and placed back in exactly the same spot. You measure the distance from the edge of the table by eye, maintaining perfect symmetry. You fluff the heavy velvet cushions on the huge sofas. The edges of the cushions must form right angles without a single extra fold in the fabric. You run your hand over the upholstery, directing the velvet pile strictly in one direction. The sofa looks as if no one has touched it since it was made. In the corners of the ceiling, you collect cobwebs with a long bamboo stick with feathers at the end. You carefully walk around fragile porcelain lamps, trying not to touch them with the edge of your dress. Your movements resemble a slow dance with no room for sudden jerks or haste. You control your every move, aware of the value of the things around you. Then you move on to the huge mirrors in heavy gilded frames. You wipe the glass with a mixture of water and vinegar, using old newspaper sheets. The glass becomes crystal clear, leaving no streaks or whitish spots. In the reflection, you see only a spacious, empty room and your bent back. You gather the wet rags into the deep pocket of your gray work apron. You carefully examine the room from the doorway, checking the results of your long labor. All the objects are in their places, the floors are shiny, and a cozy fire is burning in the fireplace. Your figure disappears into the shadows of the hidden corridor just a second before the owners arrive. You close the door tightly behind you, blending into the darkness of the service rooms. Your breathing evens out as you walk to the next area of your responsibility. You descend to the laundry room, located on the lowest level of the cold basement. Here, thick steam constantly rises from huge boiling copper cauldrons. You put on a long, rubberized apron over your usual cotton dress. You pick up a heavy wooden paddle and approach the bubbling cauldron of hot water. Inside, bed linen, tablecloths, and napkins soaked in a caustic alkaline solution are boiling. The smell of laundry soap and boiling water hits your nose, making your eyes water. You stir the heavy, wet fabric, putting all your physical strength into it. Then you pull out the hot laundry with long wooden tongs. You throw the wet fabric into a wooden trough for a long rinse. Your hands are immersed in cold water, washing away the remains of caustic soap from the linen fibers. This sudden change in temperature causes your finger joints to ache painfully. The hardest part of the job comes when wringing out thick sheets. You grab one end of the wet fabric, while another maid grabs the opposite end. You begin twisting the fabric in opposite directions, squeezing out streams of excess water. The wet linen weighs an incredible amount, and your arm muscles burn from the intense strain. You place the wrung-out laundry in huge woven baskets made of thick wicker. You lift the basket onto your hip and begin the long climb up the black staircase. The basket presses against your side, and the moisture soaks through your work clothes. You carry this load to the upper floors where the spacious bedrooms are located. You approach a huge bed with tall, carved wooden posts. You spread a clean sheet, pulling its edges so tight that the surface becomes as smooth as parchment. You tuck the corners of the fabric under the heavy mattress with a special envelope. The lines must be perfectly straight without the slightest unevenness. You place woolen blankets and a heavy silk bedspread on top of the sheet. You smooth out the surface with broad strokes of your palms, removing invisible creases. The air in the bedroom is filled with the smell of fresh linen and the light aroma of dried lavender. Your hands are red from constant contact with water and rough fabric. You carefully fold a stack of snow-white pillowcases and place them on a wide shelf of the dresser. Your shoulders are slumped with fatigue, but there are still many tasks ahead of you. You are wearing a clean afternoon apron with perfectly starched white ties that cinch your waist tightly. The huge dining table in front of you is already covered with a heavy, snow-white tablecloth made of fine linen and densely set with shiny family silver and expensive crystal. At this moment, the room is filled with a deep, almost solemn silence, interrupted only occasionally by the steady ticking of the tall grandfather clock in the corner. You stand motionless, smelling the faint scent of wax and fresh flowers from the vases. You freeze in anticipation of the sharp sound of the brass gong, which traditionally announces the start of the formal dinner to all the inhabitants. Your hands are humbly folded on your stomach, and your gaze is strictly lowered to the oak floor so as not to accidentally meet the eyes of the hosts or their distinguished guests. You seem to blend in with the dark embossed wallpaper and heavy wooden wall panels, gradually becoming just another familiar part of the expensive interior. Your main task for the evening is to be as helpful as possible while remaining completely invisible to those around you. The massive double doors finally open, and the family members enter the dining room in their finest evening attire and jewelry. You take a clear step forward and silently pull out a heavy carved chair from under the table for the First Lady. You wait patiently for the host to sit down comfortably, then just as smoothly and carefully push the heavy chair back into place. All your movements are precisely coordinated in advance with the movements of the other servants in the room, forming a single, coordinated, and completely silent mechanism. You carefully take a very heavy silver platter with hot, steaming food from the side serving table against the wall. You slowly approach the people sitting at the table strictly from the left side, as required by the rules of etiquette. You tilt the dish just enough so that the host can comfortably put the desired amount of food on their plate themselves. At the same time, you are careful to ensure that your starched sleeve does not touch the shoulder of the person sitting at the table. Any physical contact between servants and masters is considered the height of impropriety. Your breathing remains completely even, and you try to breathe only through your nose so as not to make any unnecessary sounds in the silence of the room. You constantly and very carefully monitor the level of wine in crystal glasses and the amount of cool water in heavy jugs. As soon as a guest glass is even half empty, you instantly step forward and smoothly refill it with the desired beverage. The bottle is always wrapped in a clean white napkin so that cold drops of condensation do not accidentally fall on the tablecloth or guest clothes. Small talk flows freely at the table, with the latest city news, contemporary art, and high politics being openly discussed. You can clearly hear every word that is said, but your face remains completely impassive and utterly inscrutable to those around you. You have no right to even smile slightly at a good joke or show your personal surprise at the gossip you hear. For the noble people at this table, you have no more personality than a simple silver spoon or porcelain vase. As soon as the next course is finished, you quickly and quietly begin to clear all the dirty dishes from the table. This time, you approach the guests only from the right side, carefully removing the fragile porcelain plates one by one. All the dirty dishes are placed on a wide wooden tray without the slightest clang of metal or the clink of forks against the edges of the plates. You carefully carry this heavy tray to the dark service corridor, immediately handing it over to the kitchen staff for immediate washing. Then you pick up a special small silver brush and a flat dustpan to quickly clean up breadcrumbs. You rhythmically brush the tablecloth, carefully collecting the smallest breadcrumbs before dessert is served. Your every small action is measured to the millimeter and performed with frightening mechanical precision. You quickly retreat again into the saving shadow of the large sideboard, waiting for the next silent order or signal from the butler. A formal dinner usually lasts several long hours, and during that time, you are required to remain on your feet without the right to rest. Your back remains perfectly straight, and your leg muscles are tense from standing in one position for so long and almost motionless. You finally leave the dining room only when the last guest goes to the front parlor for coffee. After that, you extinguish the candles on the table and quickly begin to prepare the room for tomorrow's early morning. You return to your familiar service corridors to continue your mandatory evening housekeeping duties. Your quiet footsteps are instantly lost in the labyrinth of black staircases and very long, narrow basement corridors. You enter the spacious bedrooms on the upper floors very quietly, while all the owners are still downstairs in the formal living room. The rooms are already deep in evening twilight, and the air in them begins to cool rapidly as soon as the sun sets. Your main goal is to completely prepare these rooms for sleep so that none of the residents even notice your brief presence. You must act like an invisible spirit, creating comfort out of emptiness. You slowly approach the tall windows and begin to rhythmically draw the heavy velvet curtains. You carefully pull the thick silk cords, completely closing the room from the cold night drafts and the thick darkness outside. Then you take a special long splint and light the oil lamps on the small bedside tables one by one. A soft and warm yellow light instantly fills the room, creating the necessary atmosphere of home comfort and pleasant warmth. With a smooth movement, you throw back the heavy silk bedspread, completely exposing the snow-white starched sheets. You take a massive copper hot water bottle with a long wooden handle, which has been filled in advance with hot coals from the kitchen fireplace. You quickly and methodically run the hot water bottle between the sheets, warming the cold linen for your host's future sleep. Your movements must be very quick and precise so as not to accidentally burn the thin and very expensive bed linen. Nearby, on a soft armchair, you carefully lay out a long cotton nightgown and a heavy velvet robe for changing. On the carpet near the bed, you place soft slippers, aligning their toes perfectly parallel to each other. On the dressing table, you carefully lay out silver hairbrushes and open bottles of fragrant rose water. In a matter of minutes, the whole room becomes the perfect place for complete relaxation, as if by magic. You take a heavy jug of hot water and carefully pour it into a deep porcelain basin for your evening wash. Next to it, you place a small stack of clean towels, which have been folded in advance into perfectly even squares. White steam from the hot water slowly rises, mixing with the subtle aroma of expensive toilet soap in the soap dish. You check the amount of fresh water in the drinking jug one last time and place a perfectly clean glass next to it. Every small item in this room has its own designated place, determined by many years of strict house rules. You slightly adjust the heavy chair, aligning its high back exactly with the line of the floral pattern on the wallpaper. You carefully gather the clothes that were left lying around during the day and take them to a special room for cleaning and minor repairs. Now there is not a single speck of dust left in this bedroom, nor a single unnecessary or accidentally forgotten item belonging to the owners. You silently take all your work tools and turn off the bright overhead light, leaving only the small bedside lamps on. You take one last careful look at the room, checking the fruits of your painstaking and honest labor. Perfect order and pleasant warmth now patiently await the owners, who will soon slowly ascend the main staircase. You quietly exit through the inconspicuous side door for servants, turning the brass handle almost silently. You glide through the dark corridors like a gray shadow, instantly dissolving into the unlit corners. Your steps on the back stairs seem completely silent and very measured. The hidden world of servants has its own rigid structure and unbreakable laws. Every day you descend into the servants' hall, located in the deep, dry basement of a huge mansion. It is a large room with simple whitewashed walls and a long, heavy oak table right in the middle. Here, the housekeeper reigns supreme in her immutable black silk dress, whose every word is absolute law to you. The cold basement air is permeated with the smell of roasted meat and clean starch. The seats at this long table are always assigned strictly according to position and seniority. At one end of the table sits the important butler, and at the other end sits the formidable and very strict housekeeper. As a regular junior maid, you take your modest place closer to the middle of the table, next to the noisy kitchen staff. Backless chairs are specially chosen for the servants to force you to keep your posture perfectly straight throughout the meal. Any sign of relaxation is considered a sign of bad manners and laziness here. During communal meals, the house rules strictly forbid any loud conversation or unnecessary laughter. You silently and quickly pass around heavy plates of simple food, which usually consists of boiled meat and seasonal vegetables. The clatter of cheap forks on simple clay plates is the only sound in this spacious and uncomfortable room. You try to eat as quickly and neatly as possible, knowing full well that your leisure time is strictly limited by the rules of this house. Every second of delay can be seen as stealing time from your host. Anytime you talk to the older servants, you have to add a special, respectful prefix to their names. You don't have the right to ask the butler questions first, or try to argue with the cook's sharp instructions. Your entire life is completely subject to a strict schedule, which is posted on a large blackboard near the kitchen stove. Every minute of your long day is scheduled by the hour, starting with an early morning wake-up and ending with a late bedtime. You do not have a second for your own thoughts or idle dreams. You have absolutely no right to any personal belongings or jewelry during your working hours. All your clothes are issued personally by the housekeeper and must always be kept in perfect, almost sterile cleanliness. You are required to wash and carefully iron your white collars yourself late at night when all the main housework is done. The discovery of the slightest stain on your front apron will inevitably result in a severe reprimand and immediate deprivation of part of your salary. Your neatness is the main indicator of your suitability for service. You are not allowed to step outside the mansion without special written or verbal permission. Meetings with your relatives or old friends are only possible on your rare day off, which happens once a month. This huge house gradually becomes your whole world, with its own boundaries and absolutely unbreakable laws. All your personal interests are now completely subordinate to the interests of this huge and complex mechanism of serving the family. You cease to belong to yourself and become part of this building. Among the numerous servants downstairs, there is a hidden system of denunciations and petty intrigues for the favor of the higher authorities. You quickly learn to always keep your mouth shut and never share your secret thoughts with your neighbors in your cramped room. A single careless word can cost you your lucrative position and a good written recommendation in an instant. Without this paper, you will never be able to find a new decent job in another respectable house. You get used to trusting only your hands and your ability to do hard work flawlessly. Late in the evening, after a modest supper, you sit down in a dark corner of the hall to do the mandatory mending of laundry and repair of work aprons. Your tired fingers habitually and quickly wield a long needle under the dim and flickering light of a gas lamp. The room is usually completely silent, interrupted only by the dry coughs of colleagues or the creaking of old wooden chairs. You bow your head low over your endless sewing, mentally preparing yourself for tomorrow's hard day's work. Your eyes water from the strain, but the work must be finished on time. Your personality is gradually erased, finally giving way to a set of useful functions and skills honed to perfection. You become an ideal and invisible cog in this huge and complex machine of Victorian domestic life. Your endless obedience and incredible diligence remain the only way to survive in this harsh social system. Tomorrow will certainly bring you nothing new, only a monotonous repetition of all the steps you have already taken before. You accept this order as something natural and inevitable. In this harsh basement hierarchy, there is no room for human weakness or the display of your own emotions. You simply do your daily work, completely dissolving into the general mass of faceless service personnel. Even your employers may forget your name over time, but the quality of your cleaning will always be under their strict control. You pull the last thread with effort, finishing your evening darning, and finally prepare for your very short night's sleep. Your clothing in this house is not just a piece of fabric, it is the main symbol of your low status. Early in the morning, you put on a simple calico dress with a fine stripe, which is designed specifically for the dirtiest work. It is made of very durable and coarse material that can withstand daily washing in boiling water. Over this dress, a wide, coarse apron is tied tightly to protect you from coal soot and house dust. You look like a shadow, ready to dissolve into the morning twilight of the corridors. The white collar of your dress must always be stiffly starched and fit tightly around your neck, preventing you from turning your head freely from side to side. You fasten it with a small copper pin, which feels unpleasantly cold against your skin in the morning in the unheated room. White cotton cuffs tightly grip your wrists, completely hiding your hands, reddened from the icy water and soap. This uncomfortable uniform literally forces you to keep your back straight and move with a certain amount of stiffness. You cannot afford to slouch under the housekeeper's gaze. You are required to wear a white cap on your head at all times, which completely hides your tightly braided hair. Not a single strand of hair should escape from under the starch-laced border during your intense work. The cap is securely fastened with sharp metal pins, which often dig into the scalp with any sudden movements. This serves as a constant reminder of your status and the strict necessity to maintain perfect neatness in everything. Every morning, you spend a lot of time in front of the mirror to make sure the cap sits perfectly straight. In the afternoon, before serving a formal dinner, you are required to change from your work clothes into more formal attire. You put on a strict black wool dress with long sleeves and a very high collar. Over it, you carefully tie a snow-white apron with wide straps and very rich lace trim around the edges. This festive apron seems so stiff from the excess starch that it almost stands on its own and rustles loudly as you walk. In this outfit, you must look impeccable as you walk past the gentleman in the living room. Your heavy black leather boots have very thick soles and tight lacing up to your ankles. They protect your feet well from the cold stone floors in the basement, but they also squeeze your tired feet. You diligently polish them with smelly wax every evening so that the leather shines dully in the warm light of the oil lamps. The soles of your shoes must not make a single loud knock or squeak, so you quickly learn to walk with a special roll from toe to heel. You must move around the house like a silent ghost. Underneath your dress, you wear a very tight corset made of natural whalebone and stiff cotton. It constricts your ribs, making it almost impossible to breathe deeply while doing heavy physical work. The corset effectively supports your back when lifting heavy buckets of coal, but it often leaves deep red marks on your skin. You gradually get used to this constant pressure and lack of air as an integral part of your life. Without the corset, your figure would be considered indecent and loose. The total weight of all these complex, multi-layered garments is several heavy pounds. You are forced to wear petticoats, long cotton pantaloons, and very thick stockings made of coarse, prickly wool. In the intense summer heat, this thick uniform becomes a real trap for your body, causing you to sweat constantly and profusely. However, removing even small elements of the uniform or unbuttoning buttons is strictly prohibited by the rules of the house in all weather conditions. No one cares about your suffering from the heat as long as you look appropriate. Your clothes are completely devoid of any bright colors, beautiful patterns, or simple decorative elements. You are not even allowed to secretly pin on a small brooch or wear a ribbon of a different interesting shade. The austere black and white colors make you look like a faceless gray shadow against the colorful and expensive wallpaper of the mansion. This uniform is specifically designed to emphasize your complete submission to your masters and your lack of desires or tastes of your own. You become part of the interior, not a living person. Every evening after your shift, you carefully clean your black dress with a stiff brush to remove the accumulated road dust. You carefully smooth out all the folds on your white apron with a very heavy cast iron filled with coals. You carefully check every little button and every seam for even the slightest damage. Your appearance must be absolutely flawless at all times, no matter how exhausted you are at the end of the day. Dirty servants are a disgrace to any noble house. Over time, the uniform becomes your second skin, completely changing your gait and your inner perception of yourself. You only begin to feel at home when you habitually tighten the laces of your white apron. Your true identity is now safely hidden under many layers of starched cotton and thick black wool. You are merely a function of this house, dressed in the standardized servant clothing, stripped of your right to your own face. The layout of the huge Victorian mansion resembles a complex two-layer labyrinth created specifically to separate the classes. Behind the luxurious reception rooms with gilding and silk wallpaper lies a whole network of dark service corridors. You move exclusively along these invisible arteries, like blood inside a living, complex organism. The owners of the house can live there their entire long lives without ever looking beyond the walls. They are completely unaware of the existence of these narrow passages that run through the building. The black staircase is the main transport artery for all categories of servants in the house. It is a very narrow spiral of steep wooden steps, completely devoid of railings and natural window light. The steps have been worn down by thousands of feet over decades of continuous and heavy use. You climb up and down it dozens of times a day, carrying heavy buckets of coal and baskets of dirty laundry. Your knees start to ache by midday from this constant vertical strain. Of particular importance in the architecture of the house are the heavy doors, tightly covered with green cloth on tight spring hinges. They reliably separate the noisy world of the servants from the quiet world of the masters, completely absorbing the sharp smells of the kitchen and the loud sounds of work. You habitually push this massive door with your shoulder, leaving the dark and damp corridor and entering the brightly lit hall. You quickly do your job without attracting unnecessary attention and instantly disappear back behind the silently closing door. For guests of the house, your appearance must seem almost like a miracle or an accident. In a large house, there are always special rooms for cleaning lamps, storing silverware, and ironing laundry. These rooms are carefully hidden by architects in blind spots where the eyes of distinguished guests never fall. They constantly reek of kerosene, smelly polishing paste, and hot, damp steam from heavy cast iron irons. This is where real life is in full swing, maintaining the perfect illusion of order in the formal rooms upstairs. Without this hidden and arduous labor, all the splendor of the mansion would instantly turn to dust. Service corridors often have very low ceilings and cold, uneven stone floors underfoot. You have to constantly duck your head as you walk under heavy oak beams in the oldest part of the house. The walls here are never covered with expensive wallpaper, but simply coated with cheap lime whitewash that stains your clothes. The air in these passageways always remains cool and damp, regardless of the season and the weather outside. The dampness gradually penetrates your bones, becoming your constant companion at work. You know perfectly well by the sound which step on the black staircase creaks the most. You step over it automatically, even when carrying a huge stack of very heavy plates in your hands. You know exactly where the deep niche is located, where you can hide safely if the owner accidentally enters the corridor. Your knowledge of this huge house is purely practical, aimed solely at ensuring your own invisibility. Being seen idle in the wrong place is considered a serious disciplinary offense. A special hand lift built directly into the wall is used to lift heavy coal and firewood to the upper floors. You pull with all your might on the thick, rough hemp rope, raising the small wooden cabin to the floor you need. The mechanism creaks quite loudly, but this unpleasant sound is reliably isolated from the ears of the masters by thick brick shafts. You carefully remove the heavy load through a small wooden door hidden behind wall panels in the service corridor. Your work remains mechanical and monotonous, requiring enormous physical strength. Your usual routes intersect with those of other servants only in strictly designated areas. You silently pass each other in the narrow corridors, pressing your backs tightly against the cold, damp walls. You almost never talk, only occasionally exchanging brief nods or sympathetic, weary glances. Movement in these invisible paths of the mansion never completely stops, neither on a bright day nor in the dead of night. This is the hidden life of the house, which provides comfort to its official inhabitants. These hidden passages remain your only legitimate space in this huge and alien house. Only here can you literally relax your tired back for a second or adjust your white cap that has slipped to one side. But even here, you must be ready at any moment for the sudden sharp ring of the copper bell. You are always on full alert, like a real soldier on eternal duty. Your vigilance must never waver, or you risk losing your place. A detailed map of these invisible paths is forever imprinted in your memory during your first month of service. You can confidently walk along them, even with your eyes closed, guided only by familiar smells and air currents. This hidden labyrinth is both your prison and your only refuge. You always return to the familiar darkness of the corridors after each brief outing into the light of the ceremonial halls. Your endless workday comes to an end only late at night when the city falls silent. The owners of the house have long since retired to their luxurious bedrooms, and the last oil lamps in the reception rooms have gradually been extinguished. You make your obligatory final rounds of the rooms on the first floor with the pedantic butler. Together, you check all the window latches and heavy iron bolts on each massive entrance door. A silence descends on the house that seems almost palpable and oppressive. In the spacious living room, you carefully extinguish the last embers in the marble fireplace with a heavy metal cover. The sharp smell of burnt wood and rapidly cooling fireplace, soot lingers in the air. You carefully move the heavy armchairs back to their original positions, aligning the strict geometry of the room. The mansion gradually sinks into a cold and empty sleep that will last only until the next early dawn. Your body demands rest, but there are still a few more tasks to complete. In the servants' hall, you finally take off your starched white apron and fold it very carefully on the edge of the table. You untie your stiff collar, allowing yourself to take your first truly deep breath of this long day. Your legs ache with fatigue, and your feet are literally on fire after 16 hours of continuous standing. You take a small wax candle stub and a simple copper candlestick to light your way upstairs. You begin your long and tiring climb up the black staircase to the top floor, located under the roof. The old wooden steps creak quietly under your heavy work boots in the complete silence of the house. The air becomes noticeably colder with each new flight of stairs, as the attic is never heated, even in the harshest frosts. You carefully cover the faint flame of the candle with your palm so that it is not accidentally blown out by a sharp draft from the numerous cracks. You slowly enter your tiny room with a sloping ceiling and only one small skylight. There are 3 narrow iron beds here, covered with very thin and prickly gray blankets made of cheap wool. There is no expensive carpet or warm fireplace in this room, just a simple tin wash basin and an old chest of drawers for personal belongings. Your 2 roommates are already fast asleep, their steady breathing slightly disturbing the ringing silence of the attic. You try to move as quietly as possible so as not to disturb their short sleep. You slowly take off your heavy black dress, leaving you in a long and rather coarse nightgown. You carefully remove all the metal pins from your hair, allowing it to fall freely onto your tired shoulders. You finally lie down on your hard mattress, which is stuffed with cheap and very prickly straw. You pull a thin woolen blanket up to your chin, desperately trying to retain the last remnants of your body heat. Your muscles begin to contract painfully, gradually relaxing after the monstrous tension of the day. In complete darkness, you can clearly hear the cold wind howling mournfully behind the thin glass of your small attic window. This sound reminds you how lonely a person is in this vast world. The echo of constantly ringing copper bells and the creaking of expensive parquet flooring lingers in your buzzing head for a long time. You involuntarily scroll through tomorrow's long to-do list in your memory, panicking that you might forget some important detail. Sleep comes very hard, despite the complete physical exhaustion of your entire body. You fall asleep with difficulty, knowing full well that you only have a few very short hours at your disposal. Tomorrow, everything will start all over again, without the slightest change in your schedule. The huge house sleeps, safely hiding dozens of similar invisible and difficult lives within its walls. Your existence is completely limited to dark corridors, hard physical labor, and very strict rules of conduct. Your name will surely remain forever unknown to history, hidden behind the glossy facade of the great Victorian era. You are just another silent shadow that keeps order in this huge social mechanism. You close your eyes and the darkness of the room finally engulfs you until the first morning bell. Tomorrow you will wake up before dawn again to light the cold fireplaces. Your hands will be covered in soot again, and your back will bend under the weight of coal buckets. This cycle never ends, creating the illusion of a carefree life for the owners of the mansion. Your only goal is to remain the perfect and completely invisible servant. Your long day finally ends in a cold and dark attic under an old roof. You close your eyes knowing full well that tomorrow this whole grueling ritual will repeat itself without change.